It's that time of year again. Our time is now. All of us lonely horror nerds. It's October. Let's kick this off right. Hey, what's up, you guys? Nick from the Lost River Drive-In here, and tonight I wanted to do a video just giving you 10 horror movies that I think you should watch this October. Now, if you guys listen to the You Need a Horror podcast, you heard Christian and I on our most recent episode give you guys 31 movies each. Now, that's great. That's fine and dandy, but I wanted to pick 10 movies and do it on my channel because I know not all of you guys listen to the podcast. So I grabbed 10 movies off the shelf and I thought, let's just do it. Let's do it here. So these are just 10 movies, no particular order, not saying they're the 10 you have to watch, but these are 10 movies you need to watch. And the first one is going to be House on Haunted Hill. Now, obviously, this is a great edition, this collector's edition Blu-ray from Scream Factory. It's got some great special features. The transfer on this thing is really, really great. And this movie just rules. Like, absolutely rules. Now, I know that this is obviously a remake of a classic old school horror film, but I mean, I would take this all day over the original. There's something about this movie. Now, obviously, there's some nostalgia that clouds things a little bit for me because I watched this movie as a kid. This was popular when I was a little kid, and it was always on AMC, and I couldn't help but want to watch this movie. And I remember this movie just feeling like a fever dream. There's so much that happens in this movie. The imagery, the setting, some of the effects aren't great, especially the black blob at the end of the movie, but like, it's really freaky. This movie is really, really effective. And I just feel like it feels like a wild haunted house ride. And for that alone, I think that you have to put this in rotation in October. I don't care if you watch it on October 31st or on October 1st. You still need to watch it. So House on Haunted Hill from 1999 is going to be my first pick. Coming up next is going to be the 90s horror classic, my favorite horror film from that entire decade, Candyman, or as Christian would say, Candyman. And, I mean, what is there to say about Candyman that hasn't already been said? This movie is incredible. This movie is an all-timer. This movie is the role that Tony Todd's going to be remembered for the rest of his life. I mean, it's just, yes, everything about this movie. The score, the aesthetic, the atmosphere, the acting, the kills, the dialogue. This movie rules. And again, this is a great edition. This is a Scream Factory collector's edition of this movie. You've got some great special features on here. The scans are really, really good on here. It's just, this movie was done justice with this release, and I've been happy ever since it came out and haven't felt the need to. I mean, I'd love to get a new one with more special features and, but regardless, this is me being selfish. This is a great movie. This movie definitely does feel like maybe it takes place more in like late November to early January, but it's got that cold time of year feel, very isolated, very spooky. It is absolutely positively a must watch in the month of October. Coming up next is one that just celebrated its 10th birthday, and although it's only 10 years old, I'm very, very glad to say that I feel like this is a horror classic, and it's a must-watch for me every October. And that is The Conjuring, James Wan's The Conjuring. This movie, guys, this movie is a movie that just, I think, feels like evil, witchcraft this time of year. Obviously, the story is about like a demon woman. So, of course, it fits October. But also it's the setting, this desolate farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. It's very barren, and it just feels like fall to me. It almost reminds me of the opening of Halloween 4. And this movie's awesome. I mean, this movie's creepy, it's effective, it's suspenseful, it is masterfully shot. This movie's awesome. And you guys know I love this movie, but I think this one, because The Conjuring 2 is my favorite, but that's more like a Christmas watch for me, because that movie takes place around Christmas. But The Conjuring, this is a movie that I feel like you have got to watch in the month of October. The next one is also a film that just screams October because of its setting, because of the isolation, the fog that's all over the place. I don't know. It's just, Yes, you'll know as soon as I say that it is The Evil Dead. The Evil Dead not being my favorite Evil Dead film, but I still think the creepiest Evil Dead film. I still think it is the most effective when it comes to the scares, when it comes to the tension. I think The Evil Dead is that movie. I also think this movie, because of its budget and its constraints, feels the most isolated, feels the most hopeless, and feels the most claustrophobic. And I think that that claustrophobia in this woods, this cold woods setting, just screams fall to me. I cannot go an entire October without watching The Evil Dead. Like, I could watch only The Evil Dead in this series in October and I'd be satisfied, because this movie, for the tone and the atmosphere alone, I think it belongs in your yearly October watch. So The Evil Dead. And you know, speaking about fog, John Carpenter's The Fog. I've talked about this many times. I've actually done a watch along of this movie on my channel. I am a huge fan of this movie. I genuinely might take it over The Thing, and so many people are probably like, Nick, that is blasphemous. I'm not saying it's better than The Thing, but I love this movie so much. It's got such a soft spot in my heart that, like, my childhood, when times were simpler and I was first shown The Fog, like, it's always going to be really, really special. This movie is super effective. This movie, again, feels very hopeless, feels very cold, very lonely, very dark, gloomy. All of those adjectives describe The Fog. And I think that even just the antagonists being these undead zombie pirates, it's like, yes, Halloween, absolutely. So The Fog, I think, is a seminal classic. I feel like too often this movie gets overlooked because Carpenter did Halloween and The Thing. So people are like, well, those are the two you really need to see. No, make that free. If you're watching 3 Carpenter films, this is the third one you need to watch. The Fog is damn good. This collector's edition steelbook is damn good. Shout out Scream Factory. Put this in your rotation in October if you haven't already. The next one is a PSA about safe sex. Kind of. Not really. I have raved about this movie since this movie came out. I've talked about it extensively on my channel and on the podcast. I don't think anybody was ready for just how good this movie was. And I think most people nowadays agree that this movie is an absolute banger. This movie is a throwback John Carpenter-esque movie if I've ever seen one. From the score, to the atmosphere, to the shot selection, to the framing, you name it, to the slow burn, suspenseful instead of the in your face. This is an homage and a love letter to 70s horror and specifically John Carpenter. And I absolutely adore this movie. Now, this is one of the first movies I remember really getting called like elevated horror. And I think that term just has like a negative connotation now. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't think we should be labeling anything that seems like it's more than just gore as elevated horror, so to speak. But It Follows is definitely one of those movies that is more metaphorical and symbolic and less about what is actually tangible and what is there. Having said that, it's not a hard movie to follow. It's actually very easy to grasp, and it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous movie, and it's timeless, and It Follows. If this isn't in your rotation in October, again, what are you doing? The next one is one that I think is my favorite Stephen King adaptation of all time, but one that is, as I've talked about, it gets more and more difficult to watch the older I get. And that's a good thing because it's effective. And that is Pet Sematary. I mean, Pet Sematary is a truly, truly, truly depraved, depressing story. And all that being considered, I think it makes it that much better to watch in October because it is so dark, it is so gloomy, and it is so hopeless. Also, you know, it's about reanimated corpses, reanimated by evil spirits. Like, yeah, we're walking around woods at night, burial grounds. People are coming back from the dead. Little kids are killing people, slicing their Achilles tendon. Yeah, this is Halloween. So absolutely Pet Sematary. And if you guys don't have the Mondo Steelbook of Pet Sematary, you are missing out. This is a beefy, thick, gorgeous steelbook. But Pet Sematary better be on your list. Next up is going to be one that is also only about 15, 16 years old, but is one that has really, really made a name for itself and become a staple. And that is Trick or Treat. Michael Dougherty's, I would say, cult classic, pretty much classic almost at this point. Trick or Treat. It's a great movie. First of all, Warner Brothers had no idea what they had on their hands when they dumped this thing to, direct to video, because now all you see at Spirit Halloween are trick or treat related things because it's huge. It has become a phenomenon, and for good reason. There are a few movies, if any, in my opinion, that ooze October Halloween atmosphere like Trick or Treat. Even if you don't like the movie, which I don't know how you can't, because I do think all of these stories are super, super well done. I think there's just enough camp, there's just enough fun, there's just enough creepy to make this movie work for pretty much anybody. But my God, you cannot deny that it's dripping with Halloween. I mean, it's all over the place. The decorations, the costumes, the foliage, you name it. This movie just feels like Halloween. So Trick or Treat, again, a movie that you have got to see to believe. And after you see it, you're like, I can never go another October without this movie. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Next up is going to be one that I think it's a crying shame if you haven't seen this movie. But I understand if you haven't, because it's not like super popular. It didn't get this like wide theatrical release. But if you haven't seen it, you need to rectify that now. And that is The House of the Devil. I am still not sure if this or X is my favorite Ty West movie. And you guys know how much I love X. That's how much I love this movie. Let me just tell you really quick why this belongs in your yearly rotation in October. This movie looks, feels, smells, tastes like October. It tastes and feels and looks and smells like a slow burn 70s John Carpenter-esque eerie atmospheric horror. Yes, all of that. And it has to do with like the demonic. So like, what else do you need? The House of the Devil, Ty West's masterpiece. And you guys know I had to do it to him. This is the 10th one, and of course, very on brand for my channel, but I would be remiss if I did not mention John Carpenter's Halloween. It's a seminal classic. It's the first horror film that really centered its movie around the holiday Halloween, and it's incredible. I mean, do I need to say anything else? Halloween. Are you not watching this in October? Like what's going on? Like, what are you doing? Like, come on, think. But guys, those are just 10 movies that I make sure to watch in October. I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you guys. What are 10 movies that you absolutely make sure that you watch every single October? You do not go in October without these movies, and if you don't watch one of them, you feel like you cheated October, and you should get your Halloween fandom card removed, and you should never be able to hang orange lights or carve a pumpkin again. Please let me know down below in the comments section. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Leave a like on this video. This is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In. I am so excited it's October. There's going to be so many great things on the channel for this month. Can't wait to have you guys along for the ride. But I'm pulling out.